6.13 Most classrooms have children with specific learning disabilities who need continuous support. Research is clear that the earlier such support begins, the better the chances of progress. Teachers must be helped to identify such learning disabilities early and plan specifically for their mitigation. Specific actions will include the use of appropriate technology, allowing and enabling children to work at their own pace, with flexible curricula to leverage each child's strengths, and creating an ecosystem for appropriate assessment and certification. Assessment and certification agencies, including the proposed new National Assessment Center, PARAKH, P-A-R-A-K-H, will formulate guidelines and recommend appropriate tools for conducting such assessment from the foundational stage to higher education, including for entrance exam, in order to ensure equitable access and opportunities for all students with learning disabilities. 6.14 The awareness and knowledge of how to teach children with specific disabilities, including learning disabilities, will be an integral part of all teacher education programs, along with gender sensitization and sensitization towards all underrepresented groups in order to reverse their underrepresentation. 6.15 Alternative forms of schools will be encouraged to preserve their traditions or alternative pedagogical styles. At the same time, they will be supported to integrate the subject and learning areas prescribed by NCFSE into their curricula in order to reduce and eventually eliminate the underrepresentation of children from these schools in higher education. In particular, financial assistance will be provided to introduce science, mathematics, social studies, Hindi, English, state languages, or other relevant subjects in the curriculum as may be desired by these schools. This would enable children studying in these schools to attain the learning outcomes defined for grades 1 to 12. Furthermore, students in such schools would be encouraged to appear for state or other board examinations and assessment by the NTA and thereby enroll in higher education institutions. Capacities of teachers in the teaching of science, mathematics, language, and social studies will be developed, including orientation to new pedagogical practices. Libraries and laboratories will be strengthened and adequate reading materials like books, journals, etc. and other teaching learning materials will be made available. 6.16 Within SEDGs and with respect to all the above policy points, special attention will be given to reduce the disparities in the educational development of scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. As a part of the efforts to enhance participation in school education, special hostels in dedicated regions, bridge courses, and financial assistance through fee waivers and scholarships will be offered to talented and meritorious students from all SEDGs on a larger scale, especially at the secondary stage of education, to facilitate their entry into higher education. 6.17 Under the aegis of Ministry of Defence, state governments may encourage opening NCC wings in their secondary and higher secondary schools, including those located in tribal-dominated areas. This will enable harnessing of the natural talent and unique potential of students, which in turn would help them to aspire to a successful career in the defense forces. 6.18 All scholarships and other opportunities and schemes available to students from SEDGs will be coordinated and announced by a single agency and website to ensure that all students are aware of and may apply in a simplified manner on such a single window system as per eligibility. 6.19 All the above policies and measures are absolutely critical to attaining full inclusion and equity for all SEDGs, but they are not sufficient. What is also required is a change in school culture. All participants in the school education system, including teachers, principals, administrators, counselors, and students, will be sensitized to the requirement of all students, the notions of inclusion and equity, and the respect, dignity, and privacy of all persons. Such an educational culture will provide the best pathway to help students become empowered individuals who, in turn, will enable society to transform into one that is responsible towards its most vulnerable citizens. Inclusion and equity will become a key aspect of teacher education and training for all leadership, administrative, and other positions in schools. Efforts will be made to recruit more high quality teachers and leaders from SEDGs in order to bring in excellent role models for all students. 6.20 Students will be sensitized through this new school culture brought in by teachers, trained social workers, and counselors, as well as through corresponding changes to bring in an inclusive school curriculum. The school curriculum will include early on material on human values such as respect for all persons, empathy, tolerance, human rights, gender equality, non-violence, global citizenship, inclusion and equity. It would also include more detailed knowledge of various cultures, religions, languages, gender identities, etc. to sensitize and develop respect for diversity. Any biases and stereotypes in school curriculum will be removed and more material will be included that is relevant and relatable to all communities. Point number 7. Efficient resourcing and effective governance through school complexes clusters. 7.1. While the establishment of primary schools in every habitation across the country driven by the Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan SSA, now subsumed under the Samagra Shiksha scheme and other important efforts across the states, has helped to ensure near universal access to primary schools. It has also led to the development of numerous very small schools. According to the UDICE 2016-17 data, nearly 28% of India's public primary schools and 14.8% of India's upper primary schools have less than 30 students. The average number of students per grade in the elementary schooling system, primary and upper primary, that is grades 1 to 8, is about 14, with a notable proportion having below 6. During the year 2016-17, there were 1,08,017 single teacher schools, the majority of them 85,743 being primary schools serving grades 1 to 5. 7.2. These small school sizes have rendered it economically suboptimal and operationally complex to run good schools in terms of deployment of teachers as well as the provision of critical physical resources. Teachers often teach multiple grades at a time and teach multiple subjects, including subjects in which they may have no prior background. Key areas such as music, arts and sports are too often simply not taught, and physical resources such as lab and sports equipment and library books are simply not available across schools. 7.3. The isolation of small schools also have a negative effect on education and the teaching learning process. Teachers function best in communities and teams, and so do students. Small schools also present a systematic challenge for governance and management. The geographical dispersion, challenging across conditions, and the very large numbers of schools make it difficult to reach all schools equally. Administrative structures have not been aligned with the increases in the number of schools or with the unified structure of the Samagra Shiksha scheme. 7.4. Although consolidation of schools is an option that is often discussed, it must be carried out very judiciously and only when it is ensured that there is no impact on access. Such measures are nevertheless likely to result only in limited consolidation and would not solve the overall structural problem and challenges presented by the large number of small schools. 7.5. These challenges will, by 2025, be addressed by the state, union territory government by adopting innovative mechanisms to group or rationalize schools. The objective behind this intervention would be to ensure that every school has a. Adequate number of counselors, trained social workers and teachers, shared or otherwise, for teaching all subjects including art, music, science, sports, languages, vocational subjects, etc. B. Adequate resources, shared or otherwise, such as libraries, science labs, computer labs, skill labs, playgrounds, sports equipment and facilities, etc. C. A sense of community is built to overcome the isolation of teachers, students and schools through joint professional development programs, sharing of teaching learning content, joint content development, holding joint activities such as art and science exhibitions, sports meets, quizzes and debates and fairs. D. Cooperation and support across schools for the education of children with disabilities. And E. Improved governance of the schooling system by devolving all final decisions to principals, teachers and other stakeholders within each group of schools, and treating such a group of schools which range from the foundational stage through the secondary stage as an integrated semi-autonomous unit. 7.6. One possible mechanism for accomplishing the above would be the establishment of a grouping structure called the school complex, consisting of one secondary school together with all other schools offering lower grades in its neighborhoods, including Anganwadis, in a radius of 5 to 10 kilometers. This suggestion was first made by the Education Commission 1964 to 66, but was left unimplemented. This policy strongly endorses the idea of the school complex cluster wherever possible. The aim of the school complex cluster will be greater resource efficiency and more effective functioning, coordination, leadership, governance and management of schools in the cluster. 7.7. The establishment of school complexes, clusters and the sharing of resources across complexes will have a number of other benefits as a consequence, such as improved support for children with disabilities, more topic-centered clubs and academic, sports, arts, crafts, events across school complexes, better incorporation of art, music, language, vocational subjects, physical education and other subjects in the classroom through the sharing of teachers in these subjects, including use of ICT tools to conduct virtual classes, better student support, enrollment, attendance and performance through the sharing of social workers and counselors and school complex management committees rather than simply school management committees. For more robust and improved governance, monitoring, oversight, innovations and initiatives by local stakeholders, building such larger communities of schools, school leaders, teachers, students, supporting staff, parents and local citizens would energize and empower the schooling system and in a resource efficient manner. 7.8. The governance of schools will also improve and become far more efficient with school complexes clusters. First, the DSC will devolve authority to the school complex cluster, which will act as a semi-autonomous unit. The DEO, District Education Officer, and the Block Education Officer, BEO, will interact primarily with each school complex cluster as a single unit and facilitate its work. The complex itself will perform certain tasks delegated by the DSC and will deal with the individual schools within it. The school complex cluster will be given sufficient autonomy by the DSC to innovate towards providing integrated education and to experiment with pedagogies, curriculum, etc., while adhering to the national curricular framework and state curricular framework. Under this organization, schools will gain in strength, will be able to exercise greater freedom and will continue towards making the complex more innovative and responsive. Meanwhile, the DSC will be able to focus on the aggregate level goals that need to be achieved, improving overall system effectiveness. 7.9. The culture of working to a plan, both short-term and long-term one, will be developed through such complexes clusters. schools will develop their plans, SDPs, with the involvement of their SMCs. These plans will then become the basis for the creation of School Complex Cluster Development Plan, SCDPs. The SCDP will also involve the plan of all other institutions associated with the school complex, such as vocational education institutions, and will be created by the principals and teachers of the school complex with the involvement of SCMC, and will be made available publicly. The plans will include human resources, learning resources, physical resources and infrastructure, improvement initiatives, financial resources, school culture initiatives, teacher development plans and educational outcomes. It will detail the efforts to leverage the teachers and students across the school complex to develop vibrant learning communities. The SDP and the SCDP will be the primary mechanism to align all stakeholders of the school, including the DSC. The SMC and the SCMC will use the SDP and the SCDP for oversight of the functioning and direction of the school and will assist in the execution of this plan. The DSC, through its relevant official, example, the BEO, will endorse and confirm the SCDP of every school, each school complex. It will then provide the resources, financial, human, physical, etc., necessary to achieve the SCDPs, both short-term 1 year and the long-term 3 to 5 years. It will also provide all other relevant support to the school complexes to achieve the educational outcome. The DSC and the SCERT may share specific norms. Example, financial, staffing, process and frameworks for development of the SDP and SCDP with all schools, which may be revised periodically. 7.10. To further enhance cooperation and positive synergy among schools, including between public and private schools, the twinning, pairing of one public school with one private school will be adopted across the country so that such paired schools may meet, interact with each other, learn from each other, and also share resources if possible. Best practices of private schools will be documented, shared, and institutionalized in public schools and vice versa where possible. 7.11. Every state will be encouraged to strengthen existing or established Bal Bhavan where children of all ages can visit once a week. Example, on weekends, one or more often as a special daytime boarding school to partake in art-related, career-related and play-related activities. Such Bal Bhavans may be incorporated as a part of school complexes clusters if possible. 7.12. The school should be a point of celebration and honor for the whole community. The dignity of the school as an institution should be restored, and important dates such as the functioning day, foundation day of the school will be celebrated along with the community, and the list of important alumni may be displayed and honored. Furthermore, the unutilized capacity of school infrastructure could be used to promote social, intellectual and volunteer activities for the community and to promote social cohesion during non-teaching schooling hours, and may be used as a Samajik Chetana Kendra.